You found yourself in another episode of Locked On Bulls. On today's episode, we'll be previewing today's game against the New Orleans Pelicans. We'll also be going over the injury report and asking what the heck is going on with Kobe White. And then lastly, Lauri Markkanen was interviewed by Shams, and he mentioned his time in Chicago towards the end there. We'll get into all that and more on today's Locked On Bulls.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily podcast on the Chicago Bulls, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Bulls your first listen every day. Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's Pat, the designer, host, and creator of the Windy City Breeze. I'm Haize, host and creator of Chicago Bulls and Chicago Bears Central. Nonetheless, Pat, we got a test tonight. The New Orleans Pelicans are coming in town, bro. Zion, Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, all averaging over 20 points per game. This is a team that's been doing pretty good on the offensive side of the ball. Had some issues defensively, especially in the last couple of games. But how do you look at this game, bro? What are you looking for the Bulls to do tonight?
It's a tough game, man. I mean, you need any size that we can get back. I mean, this is a game where New Orleans is one of those teams that I was a little worried about because of not only just the size and length, but how many solid players that they have with the ability to use that size, right? It's not just Zion Williamson. Zion's going to be the offensive focal point, of course, coming into tonight. But you look at a guy like Jonas Valanciunas, who's leading the team in rebounding. We know that him and Vooch usually go at it just about every game they play. They usually have a good matchup between each other, right? And you think about just seeing what the team is able to do off of the bench with how many players that they can throw at you. A Jackson Haize, I mean, even Hernan Gomez, if you really want to go that deep into it, right? Like they just have a lot of guys and a lot of size on this team that are really effective. And so I think this is going to be a really, really tough matchup for the Bulls coming into this one. I think this is going to be one of those games where you're going to need your stars to be your stars. The one thing that I do feel a little bit better about is I think Patrick Williams actually defends Zion probably the best that we've seen out of anybody in the NBA. Not to say that Zion instantly is going to be stopped by it, but I think P. Will does a really good job against Zion Williamson. So that's a little bit of a feather in the Bulls' cap, but I think that there's going to be some this is a game that's got me a little bit worried coming into it.
Yeah, it's definitely a game that I'm looking at. Like, the Bulls are going to have to be locked in defensively at every position, period.
Yeah.
Like, the only player who's really not a threat to go off even a little bit in that starting lineup is Herb Jones, but even him is averaging double-digit points per game.
Yeah.
So you don't want to sleep on this team. You don't want to allow them to get hot. I do think we have way more quality depth than what they do as far as overall, especially if Drummond ends up playing in this game. That's up to question. We'll talk about that in the next segment. But I'm looking at this game for one. Yeah, like you said, Patrick Williams is guarding Zion pretty well in their matchup so far. I think Vooch and the Valanciunas matchup, that's going to be interesting to see who wins that one. They play each other a little pretty well when they do play against each other, but it's literally everything else. Io's going to have to be locked in on CJ McCollum. We saw Fred VanVleet get off a 30-point and a 28-point game back-to-back against Io DeSumo. So he's going to have to be locked in. Him, Caruso, they're going to have to defend CJ McCollum well throughout this game. But I mean, this is the Bulls can't have one of those games where they let this team get out to a run. They can't get off to a slow start because if they do, it can get ugly quick.
And that's the thing, right? It's a team that can get off to a run. This is a team that is first in the NBA in field goals made, second in the NBA in field goal percentage. They're fifth in the NBA in three-point percentage, right? Like it's a team that really can get after you offensively. Now, like you alluded to, though, defensively is kind of where the Bulls can get after them because defensively, surprisingly enough, right, they're 23rd in the NBA in opponents' field goals made. They're 18th in the NBA in field goal percentage. They're 25th in the NBA in three-point percentage. So this is a game where I'm really focusing on Zach LaVine maybe taking a few more threes. If you know that they're not going to defend you as well in that one, you want to see him knock that down. Hopefully we'll get, and we haven't gotten the final injury report yet. Hopefully we will get Zach LaVine in on this game. I believe he should be in just based on kind of how they've played the knee management, knee injury management, or knee load management, whatever management you want to call it. Somebody called it management. But No, I look at this as a game where it could be an offensive back and forth type of game, right? But I think that the Bulls can have a little bit of a slight advantage if Zach LaVine can really get himself going early on in this one. And I think this is probably a bounce back game for DeMar. We haven't really seen DeMar do too much in either of these last two games, right? So I think DeMar's probably itching to get him another 20 to 25 points in the stat sheet.
Yeah, I mean, DeMar, this is a game, especially with Herb Jones guarding him, or we'll see if they end up putting Herb Jones on Zach, depending on if Zach starts cooking. But this is a game in which DeMar and his ability to get to the free throw line is going to be highly important for the Chicago Bulls team, especially if he can get some players in foul trouble on top of that. Yeah. Going to be big for us. And, even Zach, putting the ball on the floor more, getting to the line a little bit more in that last game, if that ends up being something that we can bet on as well, we'll see. It's going to be difficult, though, bro. It's definitely going to be difficult.
Yeah, no, this is not going to be a cakewalk game. I think – and the Pelicans have done well, right? I mean, they're 8th in the West, but they're 5-5. They've kind of been on the same trajectory the Bulls have been on a little bit. Mm-hmm. And the difference here is, though, like, you've seen Zion play in 8 of their 10 games. Zion's been incredibly effective. He's still shooting 53% from the field. This is going to be a game where I think it comes down to, right, who's the guy that you can keep under wraps? The one guy that I'm focusing on here, right, and I know we talk about CJ McCollum and how he's been balling, but the field goal percentage has been really low this season. The three-point shooting percentage, he's only shooting 32% from three, only shooting 41% from the field as a whole. This might even be a game where we need to see Ayo Dosunmu get himself going a little bit more, right? Because I think, and we've kind of seen, right, Patrick Williams, the times where he takes that offensive step usually isn't when he doesn't have a big matchup defensively that he has to focus on. Those are usually the games where he's able to score a little bit more. So I think this is going to be a game where you're not going to see a ton of offense from P. Will. Might see him get up 8 to 10 shots. Maybe he goes 5 for 10. Maybe he goes 4 for 8 like he normally does. But I want to see Ayo Dosunmu be able to get into a guy like CJ McCollum, because I think this is a guy you really can attack, especially going downhill. And if the Bulls are able to space this floor out, right, that's just going to make things even harder for them defending the paint and getting their way out there.
Yeah, and then we can't let a player like Jose Alvarado go off on us. God. We got him his contract last season? You remember that?
Essentially.
Yeah, like the game after he went off on us, they signed him to a guaranteed deal.
I think yes, I can shoot, and him continuing to make shots got him his deal. That was great marketing by Jose Alvarado, but nah, he's who gets us every time. It's not Jose Alvarado. That's not the one that gets Devontae Graham.
Oh, for sure.
Somebody got to be guarding Devontae Graham on it. Sure. Like, I don't know that maybe don't put P. Will on Zion. Let Zion get his 50. We know what he can do. Somebody's got to guard Devontae Graham all night, because Devontae Graham, every single time we play them, cooks the Chicago Bulls. Let me see if I can find these.
So last season, the last game against them, first game against them, which was early in the season, he got 21 off on us. Then we faced them again towards the end of the season. He scored 30 on us.
Every single time we play the Pelicans, this man has an out-of-body experience. And here's the wild part. He's not a bad player by any means, but like,
he's not that guy.
He's not that guy. You know what I mean? Like, that is ridiculous. Like, what is Devontae Graham? Devontae Graham on the season is averaging 5.6 points.
That's crazy.
I guarantee you he's got at least 18 by the half.
That's crazy. Hopefully not. Hopefully not, man. You know what? No, I'll say this though. Honestly, if he does go off and we limit everything else, all right, fine. So Devontae Graham, over the course of his career since 2019 against the Chicago Bulls, he has averaged 18.5 points, 6.4 assists, 3.5 rebounds, and a steal per game. That's wild, bro.
That's what happens when you see red.
For that to be so different from what he does normally in his career.
He don't even do nothing else.
He cooks the Bulls.
He don't even do nothing else. Literally, his whole career, he takes 5 shots a game. Right now, this season, he's taking 5 shots a game. He's shooting 37% from the field.
Oh, man.
He's shooting 40% from 3.
That man is a career 12.5 point per game scorer. That's crazy. That is wild.
Cooking us out there.
Shout out to Devontae Graham for getting
forget that dude, man. I'm sick of
getting it off against the Bulls.
I'm sick of saying it. Every live call, I end up saying Devontae Graham, like, somebody guard this man.
Is it Devontae Graham that gets on your nerves more, or what's the dude who was killing us on Philly? He's not on the team anymore.
Kork Maz?
Oh,
Kork Maz? No, it's definitely Kork Maz because I think Kork Maz averaged like 2 points a game.
That's crazy.
I think Kork Maz legit averaged like 2 points a game, and versus the Bulls, this man would be averaging like he would always end up with 15 to 25 points. It'd be like,
that's wild, bro.
We the one game you see and you can play basketball. You made the league just to play the Bulls.
When Kork Maz is circling you on the calendar, that's a problem.
Bulls are coming in. I'm going to get a contract.
I'm about to get my contract. But all right, next up, we're going to talk about the injury report. Who's on it? Who's off it? But first, got to talk to you guys about LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. How does it work? You add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rank LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus the leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions, of course, apply. All right.
We want to thank you guys for making Locked On Bulls your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insight only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, Pat. Zach LaVine's good to go for tomorrow. Andre Drummond's still listed as questionable. Kobe White is still out. Now, you talked about how much size we do need. How do you think the absence of Andre Drummond, if he's not in the game, is going to impact the game?
I think it continues to impact Vooch the same way, right? Like I talked about where with Vooch, there's been the best games we've gotten out of him are the games where Drummond has been there. He's been able to get that rest. He's been able to sit on the bench, and he just comes out and he cooks you. We haven't seen that probably since Andre Drummond has gone out, right? Because we've seen Vooch go from playing 28 to 32 minutes a game to 33 to 36 minutes per game, upwards of 38 minutes per game, right? Because we've just needed that size so much. So, and not to say Vooch has been bad. He's just, it's been more of a backseat kind of third role kind of. I'm going to get when I get my opportunity, I'm going to take it, but I'm pacing myself through a lot of this game. I'm just down here for these boards kind of game. And I think, right, we see more of an offensive Vooch when Andre Drummond's out there. So I think that there's going to be some, there's going to be probably similar to what we've seen out of Vooch. Not to say that he's going to get cooked, but you'll probably see Vooch put up probably like 24 and 14, something like that. But I think that that's where it hurts him most, right? Like you're not getting the most dominant version of a player because he's got to exert a little bit more. I think that size makes a difference, especially when you got a Zion Williamson coming down, barreling at you, and you've got Patrick Williams and Patrick Williams and Andre Drummond out there, right? Like there was a really nice defensive unit that the Bulls were able to put out there when Drummond is healthy. So I think it still affects you defensively. Like we've seen the Bulls defense has been a little bit more shoddy since Drummond has been out of there, just because that defensive lineup doesn't have that big anchor in the middle, but it hasn't been a complete drop off, I don't think. And, hopefully we won't see that here tonight, but this is a really good Pelicans team offensively coming into this. Now defensively, like I said, right there, they're a 112 average this season. For defensive rating, 17th in the NBA. You can put up points, and we know that the Bulls can put up points. They put up 111 without DeMar DeRozan hitting 15-plus points. So we know that the Bulls can score. I think that the Bulls will be able to get an offensive game here, but trying to get a stop on this Pelicans team could be a lot harder without Drummond out there.
The New Orleans Pelicans are the fifth best rebounding team in the NBA. The Bulls are 16th. They're only separated, though, by like 1.3 rebounds per game difference between them. But I think that's where the absence of Drummond is going to hurt at, because you have a lot of rebounders on this team. with the New Orleans Pelicans. And so having the two double-digit rebounders at center that both come in and are going to get double digits, I think it's gonna be felt in this game if it does turn into one of those games where every possession matters, which it very well may be. Well, hopefully it's that, or if it's not that, it's in our favor. But so that's where I think the absence of Drummond is going to be the most felt for sure. Yeah. And so we've at times played better against it. This is a team, though, even you look at starting Valanciunas, and then you got Jackson Haize coming off, backing him up with Nance out, and that's still another 6'11" player with a huge wingspan. So they're gonna have to work for every board this game to get those extra possessions to stop the New Orleans Pelicans from getting second chance points and extra possessions themselves. If the Bulls can do that, they can definitely be in this game. But it's gonna be a night of work. They're gonna have to put in work.
I mean, would you go? I think the question then is, right, do you go more small ball in this lineup because you know that you can put up the points on this team? Now, you got to knock down them shots. But do you go with more of a small ball lineup? But then, right, now that's where you miss Kobe White being on the floor because he's a big part of that small ball lineup.
Well, I think it's going to be another game if that's what we do. To your suggestion is go small. It's going to be another game of Goran Dragic getting 25 to 26 minutes.
Which I could live with because, right, like when we saw Dragic doing that overseas, it was kind of the thing that concerned me the most about him coming in. Our next game is until Sunday.
This is
so
true.
If you were going to go with okay, Goran, we're going to play you a little bit more tonight. We're going to give you those minutes that apparently the reporter thinks that you're going to get from preseason. We don't have another game. What's that? 4 days? Oh, wait until 4 days away. So, like, now it's like, okay, now you're getting that regular rest in, and you'll be able to recover from this pretty quickly and still be effective in the next game. So I wouldn't be mad even if they did go with Dragic getting a little bit more time in this game. I mean, he would have to, right? Because there's no sign that Kobe White seems like he's on the mend anytime soon. I don't know what this is becoming at this point.
Do you think this is where you have to play the Rook for his length and activity?
I wouldn't be mad at this. I think this is a good game to get him out there, right? And he showed you in a little bit of time that, he can be effective on the court when you put him out there and that he's going to be aggressive. He looks now like he's kind of gotten used to being in the NBA, gotten a little more used to the moment. I wouldn't be mad at seeing Dalen Terry out there. I think that the length is great. The weight is the part where, I know he's like, I think he's the same weight as Derrick Jones Jr., but you can tell.
He got over 200. He got over 200.
He's over 200 for sure.
He's over 200 for sure, finally. So there is that. But I look at it like this. He still weighs about the same as Brandon Ingram.
I don't know if I'd put him on Brandon. Well, maybe. Hey, listen.
I'm not saying that you put him on Brandon Ingram. I'm just saying the weight is a concern. But if you use him in the right lineup, I think he'll be all right. It's not like we're playing.
I think he'll be fine,
15 minutes out there.
Yeah, I think he'll be fine, but I think that the question comes in, right, who's he going to be guarding on the other end? Because the thing with New Orleans bigs is they all big. They not small.
Brandon Ingram is starting at shooting guard for them.
Yeah,
which is bananas.
That tells you how big the other ones are. I mean, you got Zion Williamson, Herb Jones, Jonas Valanciunas, Larry Nance Jr., Jackson Haize. Like they got big bigs. They weigh a lot. They'll move you out your way.
Yeah. That's the only non-big they have is Najee Marshall, who's 6'7", 220 pounds. So maybe when he's out there, that's when you be like, hey, Rook, go ahead and get these minutes.
That's when you throw him out there?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get these minutes.
That's when you try to get him in there.
Yeah.
I don't know how much has he played this season? It's not,
he's averaging 20 minutes per game. He started 4 games. Yeah. He's been playing.
We'll see. Hey, get him out there, man. Put him out there shooting guard. That's what I say.
Yeah,
we've been looking for this backup shooting guard, and apparently Dalen Terry can shoot. And by the way, he shot that high arcing shot that went in.
Bro, that shot was beautiful. Before we end this segment, real quick, the fact that Kobe White on the injury report went from one injury to another to now they're not even listing the injury. They're just saying Kobe White out. Is that concerning for you?
Yeah. Because this was supposed to be the year, right? He worked in training camp. He finally had an off season. He finally had, and again, right? It's the same thing that I was saying. We'll get into the Lauri Markkanen topic in the third segment, but like You can have all of this ability, but your best ability is availability. And if you're not available, I can't use you. And this is a big season for Kobe White here. And most of his career in a Chicago Bulls uniform, he has not been available. So that's the part where it's tough. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I'm concerned about, Kobe just kind of continuing to be on the injury report, because even that, right, with his game, he can't build a rhythm that way.
Yeah. I guess we'll see, man. But let's go ahead and get into the next segment.
Before we do that, though, before we break down the Lauri Markkanen interview and kind of what he talked about with his time here in Chicago, I want to tell you guys about betonline.net, because it's your number one source for your sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional amateur league out there, from football to we need the there we go. From football to basketball to soccer to esports, we've got it all at BetOnline. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today. Use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, it's where the game starts.
There you go. Now, last segment of the day. Lauri Markkanen was interviewed by Shams. I'm going to read a direct quote here, man. Shout out to Lauri, too, before I read the quote, of having just an amazing season so far, bro. Regardless if it falls off in the second half of the season, if he falls off eventually, shout out to him for just having the eyes of the NBA on him and Utah for a minute there, as they are the number one team in the Western Conference, bro. That's crazy.
I didn't think they would be the number one team in the West. I did tell y'all that they would be better than a lot of people thought. Like, Muzz thought they were going to be like the bottom of the bottom, and I was like, Colin Sexton isn't that bad of a player, and neither is Lauri Markkanen. It's going to be tough for them to be the worst team in the Western Conference, but the top of the West is pretty crazy, and Lauri's been balling too.
Lauri leading that team and scoring 21.9 points per game, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, right under a block per game, and his assist to turnover ratio is amazing. He has a PER of 23.5, which I believe is good that's the best PER of his career, easily. He's almost besting the best PER of his career by 8 points, which is crazy.
Shout out to Lauri, man. Lauri came out balling, man. I'm glad.
Man,
I'm glad to see. I like to see successes. I got beef with Lauri because of how he kind of quit on the team at the end. But
well, let's get into that. We're gonna read this quote. So in the interview with Shams, this direct quote: "I'm the person who always looks in the mirror first and tries to figure it out. So then when it was hard, I think I just put even more pressure on myself to make the next play. If you don't get as many shots, you better make these shots count," he said. It was just a vicious circle of trying to figure it out. It was a tough year, and I think it got to the point that it wasn't much fun anymore the last 2 years in Chicago. It was big for me to be in Cleveland last season, such a fun year we had with the group of guys. Now it's much easier to go out there and play the game that I fell in love with. What do you think about that quote, brother?
Shout out to him, man. I mean, I'm glad he's been able to find his love again. I think that the Chicago process had kind of run its course due to the injury issues and things like that. I mean, still kind of the same issues still are there, but Lauri at least playing more games again, right? Like, I think the most games Lauri played here was his rookie season. After that, right, I don't think he played over 50 games with the Bulls per year. And that was always the issue, right? I don't think anybody thought Lauri Markkanen couldn't play basketball. I think that most people thought that Lauri just was never healthy enough to be on the court. And then by the time it got to the end of it, right, like, he's averaging 15 points a game for you, getting ready to and just had a lot of issues. And like you said, right, and that's the part of sports that we don't look at with a lot of guys. That's part of sports we don't pay attention to with a lot of guys. The mental pressure that is placed upon these guys, especially a guy like Lauri Markkanen, who's the 7th overall pick, right? Like, that is the part that you kind of have to look at where, yeah, he gets into a rut, but he's getting into a rut sometimes because of some mental things, sometimes because of physical things, sometimes, and then, right, you're trying to fight your way out of it. I think that I'm glad to see Lauri doing well over in Utah, man. There's always going to be a standing beef with Chicago because of how things ended for me, but it's also love. You know, it's a basketball beef. Like, I'm glad as a person, as a player, he's feeling better about his game. He's feeling better about how he's playing, and he's showing it on the court. 7 foot, 240, and you You need to be a little more dominant than you were here, and you're doing that.
Yeah. Shout out to Lauri. And so let's transition this into how this relates to the Bulls players. We have a fan base that is very impatient about development of players. We have a lot of young players on this team that still have a ton of room to develop in Kobe White, Patrick Williams, Ayo Dosunmu, definitely Dalen Terry, and I'll even throw Marco still in there, even though we know Marco can't get on the court. But with that being said, what do you think this just that's exact Billy Donovan. Every time he sees Marco, who is that? But what do you think this should tell us about how patient we should be with the young players that are on this team that are still extremely young?
I think it speaks more to the positions those players are put in, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think with Lauri, you see a clear distinction of his time on the court as the number one and his time on the court as the number two. When he was your number one on the court, right? 2018, 2019, I think Zach was just coming back.
Yeah.
Or maybe end of 2018.
No, he came to, so Lauri's rookie season is the season. We got them both the same year.
Yeah.
That's when Zach came back at the end of that season. I think Zach only played, was it 20-something games that season?
Something like that. Very, very small amount of games.
Yeah. 24 games Zach LaVine played that season.
You know, in the second year in that season, when probably Lauri Markkanen's best year as a Bull, Zach LaVine's the number one, Lauri Markkanen is the number two. As the years go on, right, you see 2019, 2020, we're trying to find other answers. 2020, 2021, we're trying to find other answers, right? We went from Lauri Markkanen being the one to Lauri Markkanen essentially with Kobe White, right, being the three, because Kobe was getting more of the shots there. And then as you get down now to Cleveland, he's the number 4 option, but he's getting his confidence back. Now he's out in Utah. He's basically their number 1 option. And he's 21 points a game, almost 22 points a game. So I think it's about position, where you put these players at, the battery you put in these players' backs. And it's the one thing, right, where I'm looking at with Patrick Williams, like we see every time we run plays for Patrick Williams makes plays. Let's not overlook that. Let's not overlook that we saw that. Let's not overlook that he's able to make those plays happen just because we have DeMar and Zach and Vooch on this team, right? Because 2 of those guys might not be the future of the Chicago Bulls. And I'll tell you what, the 20-year-old probably could be if we continue to run plays for him. And I know, right, you want him to take his time and slowly work into it, but he's showing you that he has this ability. Let's continue to go with him with that ability. I think it's more so that, and patience is just based on, again, it was the same with Lauri. The patience ran out because Lauri Markkanen couldn't stay healthy on the Bulls. And I get he can't help that, but like Lauri Markkanen also didn't stay healthy on the Cavs.
Well, I think also you got to factor in the Jim Boylan of it all, affecting every player's confidence at that point in time as well. So,
but I mean, he played his best under Jim.
Well, he did not.
His best season, probably outside of this season, is under Jim Boylan.
His second best season, that wasn't Jim Boylan season. That was still a Fred Hoiberg season.
18-19?
That wasn't 8. Was it 18-19? Give me, hold on. When was Lauri?
Lauri's best season was his second season. Wasn't that was Jim
that was
by
18,
that point, wasn't it?
Oh, let's see. When does Fred Hoiberg
I thought that was Jim. Maybe that was Fred. Which would make a lot more sense, by the way. Because Fred was here Jim was here 3 years.
I mean, it started off. Fred Hoiberg was the head coach to start that season. Then we went 5-19, and then they fired.
5-19. So most of the season with Jim, yeah, most season with Jim, I guess. Yeah, I'll give credit to Jim Boylan on that year, but he got to work with Fred all offseason.
And keep in mind too, when Boylan first took over, the players liked Jim. You remember that it was almost a breath of fresh air. Remember what part of the reason he got that and he kind of was able to backdoor into that position and talk crap about Fred Hoiberg is because at that time, Rondo and a lot of the players there really did like Jim Boylan.
Yeah, because Jim was the bench coach that was, in the players' corner. And then all till he started getting some blame thrown his way. And then it was like, oh, no, Zach LaVine sucks. And it was like, I don't think he does. I think Zach LaVine can play basketball. I don't think that's a fair assessment of it.
Yeah.
I think that the Lauri Markkanen experiment and the Lauri Markkanen, you kind of how you look at it, right, should tell Chicago fans that there's talent in almost every player, depending on the position that you put them in. They made it to the NBA for a reason. It's about how much we want to put into that player to take that step. And if you want DeMar DeRozan to be the Wilt Chamberlain record breaker for the next 3-4 years, that means you have to wait on Patrick Williams, because until he leaves, realistically, are we going to see P. Will get a ton more shots? Like, he might go from 8 to 12 to 12 to 15. But is he going to be getting 20 shots a game? Probably not.
No.
You know what I mean? So
that was the way the roster's currently constructed.
You're going to have no choice but to wait on this game. Yeah. And AK is already picking up the option. He ain't getting rid of him. Listen, I keep saying that. Muzz are like, that's for trade value. I'm like, it's not. He's shown you he's not trading this much.
He's not trading Patrick Williams. People, get over it. It's not happening.
He's
AK loves this guy. He's not happening. It's not happening. But hey, that's it, bro. You got anything left?
Nah, that's it, man. That's it. Shout out to Lauri. Keep cooking out there, man. I don't have to see you in the Eastern Conference. I ain't worried about you cooking. And I like being right. You know what I mean? I'm not that person that likes being right to the point where I like bash somebody. Be like, I told you I was right, but like,
like the weirdos that want
to see
their own players fail, so they can be like, I was right.
Yeah, the Patrick Williams haters that just want him to suck.
The anti-maxers and Patrick Williams deniers are hilarious.
Yeah. Those guys. But yeah, no, keep cooking out there, Lauri, man. I like being right. But yeah, follow us on everything at Locked On Bulls. Follow me on everything at Pat the Designer. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and showing love for another episode, man.
Absolutely. You can follow me at CEO Haize, that's CEO Haize. And thank you for making Locked On Bulls your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, please go and check on Locked On Sports Today. For your second listen, from the games that matter to the most to the biggest stories in sports, beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. For Pat the Designer, I'm Haize. This is Locked On Bulls. We out this mug. Peace, y'all.
That was better.